Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
So I was listening last week to Eckhart Tolle, and he says that nothing is wrong. It's the same thing. Nothing is wrong. It's just that our mind says, this shouldn't be this way. But actually nothing is wrong, except the mind is objecting to how it is. So the second reason I was smiling is that I thought I was doing well on when no thing can give offense, and then I could not get my talk to print out correctly. And my IT person, who's Hogan, wasn't around. And I usually try to cram as many words on a page as I can so I don't have to keep turning page after page. But for various reasons, it wouldn't cooperate. So there are going to be a lot of page turnings. So I caught my mind thinking it shouldn't be this way, but it is. So that's the fact. So if we live by the facts, then nothing gives offense. It doesn't mean we don't change things that need to be changed if we have that ability. But all the objecting in the mind is just a waste of energy and needless suffering. So this is our Koan Sesshin, 2025, the second full day. Hogan doesn't like me to say what day it is of Sesshin, because that reminds people, oh no, I have this many more days to go. And each day is full unto itself. Each hour is full unto itself. But day 2 is important, I think, because the first day we come, especially people coming into the monastery from outside, we come with a backlog of fatigue that we don't even know that we have. And the first day we just usually try to move past that and practice earnestly. And then maybe the first evening or the beginning of the second day catches up with us. So that's just the way the first and second days are. I call it the shakedown cruise for Sesshin. And none of us, no matter that we sit morning and night here and do Sesshin every month and a small retreat every month, weekend retreat every month, none of us come to Sesshin with the mind that we can cultivate after several days of Sesshin. So gentle holding of yourself in these first few days. So we're emphasizing 3 aspects of practice in this Sesshin: Sokan breathing, developing concentration, and a quiet mind. Not just a quiet mind, because a quiet mind is actually a stage, a silent mind. Cultivating a mind that is open and aware and not talking at all. These 3 work together, of course. So Sokan breathing. Many people around the world are doing mindful breathing at this time. Thousands and thousands of people are now practicing mindfulness of the breath, or breath practice. Focusing on the movement and the sensations of the breath. And this practice is extremely helpful in bringing us into alignment with our body. Because too often we live at a distance from our body and just get annoyed with it when we think it shouldn't be this way. Often we ignore it until it becomes painful, and then we become more annoyed with it. Breath practice is very important because it helps us hold our attention on the present moment, which is the only place that we are truly alive. This place, this time, is the only moment where we are truly alive. And then the next one, and the next one. Focusing on the breath prevents our mind's addiction to swerving away from now, here, now. If you've studied the mind at all, you can constantly watch the tendency of the mind to swerve away from here and now. And that's a beautiful question to ponder. Why does it do that? Keep asking the mind, why did you do that? Not with anger, but with genuine curiosity. Why did you go into the past? Why did you go into the future? What is insufficient here and now that you moved away from this? But focusing on the breath prevents the mind from swerving away from now somewhat, taking excursions into fantasy realms, all the movies that run in our mind of me in the past and me in the future, starring me. The breath can be nowhere else but in the present. It's interesting, we don't think about our past breath. So the breath can always guide us back from fantasy realms into this moment. And that's why we say the breath and the mind. Because in practice we step beyond I, me, and mind into the world, the experience of pure phenomena. So we go from my breath to the breath. And we go from the breath into pure breath. Everything is breathing. Everything is breathing. Then secondly, it's important to know Sessokon breathing. It's taught in Rinzai practice, but it's extremely useful because it adds concentration power to breath practice. So the way Shodo Harada Roshi always demonstrates it, in Sesshin, he demonstrates it every single time he does a Dharma talk. I can't quite imitate it, but it's something like this. So he's making a sound so that you can hear what it's like. Of course, you don't make that sound because you would irritate many people in the Zendo. But it's that long, sustained out-breath. And at first, it might seem awkward. First, we might tense up our belly when we're doing it, or a diaphragm. You don't need to be tense, just exactly as if you were playing an instrument, a wind instrument. And Jogen has some of his students practice this. Practice with pursed lips, so you can all try this. So you purse your lips like you're blowing on a flute and let the breath out gradually. So it's wind is answering us. Again, blowing out through pursed lips. Now you do it with lips closed. And there's a small degree of tension in the back of the throat or the back of the nose to be able to hold the breath steady, the stream of breath steady and long. So you do it without making noise through the nose. And the mind's awareness is all on the breath. And there's relaxing, relaxing, relaxing as the breath flows out. So Sokan breathing is helpful in holding and stabilizing, which means developing the power of the mind to focus for longer and longer periods on one thing. Some people add to Sokan breathing, practice with the hara or the dantian. So imagining that the breath comes from here, from the belly, from the hara, and flows out, and then flows back in. So try that. And if the concentration wanders and you're working with mu, then you add mu silently to that breath, flowing out, flowing in. So if you're working with the hara, the Sokan breath originates from the hara, flows out, flows back into the hara. So these three that we're emphasizing, Sokan breathing, concentration, and silent mind, are in accord with what Dogen Zenji said. Dogen Zenji said very clearly, this practice is not accomplished by means of the mind. It is accomplished by means of the body. When we study our mind, we realize that it has two modes, thinking and awareness. From the time when we first understood and words that were spoken to us, and then formed words in our mind, which happens between a year and 18 months. Before that is just sounds, which we go back to in Koan Sesshin. So around 18 months, we understand words, we can react to words, especially if they carry emotion. And we form words in our mind. And from that time on, words have taken over our mind. We take the words and the emotions behind them in. Oh, what a strong boy you are. What a cute little dress you have on. Stop that, you idiot. Don't be so stupid. I've told you over and over again. If you don't study and get good grades, you're going to end up back out on the streets. Wait till your father gets home. All of the things that we hear, including, look at the beautiful sky. Night, night, love you. So the mind takes in all of these words and the emotions that accompany them and tries to protect us by repeating them or reacting to them as word thoughts and the resulting emotions that those stir up in our bodies. When our mind is filled with thoughts, we lose track of the most important mode of our mind, which is the mode of awareness. It flashes in peak moments, as Fuho mentioned, with a beautiful sunset. But the door to pure awareness, the world beyond our thoughts, closes very quickly, and the flood of thoughts returns. But when we return over and over again to Sokan and concentration, and when each breath sweeps the mind clear of extraneous thoughts, extraneous thoughts. So try that. Deliberately bring thoughts into the mind. I call them like dry leaves accumulating in a dark warehouse, infinitely spacious warehouse. And then the out-breath, you dispel the thoughts like dry leaves. And then you sit enjoying this quiet, empty space. And more thoughts drift in. Oh, I can't relate to what she's talking about. Whatever. I wonder what bird that was. So on the out-breath, we disperse the dry leaves of thought. So through Sokan breathing, through concentrating, through watching what our mind is doing, we can open the door to awareness, to a truly quiet mind. A truly quiet mind. And then we open a doorway into the immense expanse of silent awareness. We open into silent illumination. Some of you were here for the Sesshin that Rebecca Lee taught on silent illumination. And some of you have heard Wagu talk about silent illumination. The silent part, we were just talking about. But illumination, why do we say illumination? Because when our mind rests in silent awareness, we can see things, experience things as they truly are. My favorite verse in the Verses of Faith Mind says, "When no thing can give offense, then all obstructions cease to be. When there is no person, when there is no prejudice, problems solve themselves." It's quite amazing when that begins to happen. Faith Mind says, "Cut off all useless thoughts and words, and there's nowhere you cannot go. Returning to the root itself, you'll find the meaning of all things." This is speaking about real phenomenon. When our mind is silent and our concentration is deep, we can tap into the root itself. Returning to the root itself, you find the meaning of all things. The root itself is prajna mind, wisdom beyond tangled human thoughts. Prajna wisdom can manifest as small insights and eventually as big openings that turn you completely inside out. Once you develop the ability to switch to silent mind, pure awareness, that clarified mind is the most wonderful companion you will ever have. So this is day 2, and some people had their first experience of Sanzen with these 2 teachers yesterday, and some people had their first experience of Sanzen working with a koan. Yes, everyone needs to come to Sanzen. And we began with the usual way that koan work happens, which is you might see the teacher twice or even 3 times a day. Quick in, demonstrate the koan out. So we'll go back to probably one sanzen a day, 1 meeting a day. So there's not quite so much commotion. If we sit a sesshin without seeing a teacher, then the fox is still in charge of the henhouse. The ego is quite free to block us from experiencing what is beyond it. The ego likes to be in charge. The small mind likes to be in charge. Always has been from the time we were young. And it's frightened. Of what will happen to you if it's not in charge. So we have to let it adjust gradually to pure awareness, to moment flow. Without it analyzing or advising us. Know that at times it's quite frightened and will try to dislodge us from this practice. And it just takes, in my experience, a few days of sesshin for the ego to or whatever we want to call it, small self, to realize, oh, maybe I don't have to work so hard. Maybe I can trust. Maybe I can open to a full experience of this moment. On day 2, and day 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, and 8, yes, everyone is experiencing pain, including the teachers. Sometimes people come to sesshin and they think that they are the only one experiencing pain. I guarantee that many people have worse pain, which I like to call strong, unpleasant sensations, than you do. So please take care of your body by changing things. If you need to, change the height of your cushions. Try alternating between sitting cross-legged and using a kneeling bench or a tall bench or a chair. But pain is also an interesting koan. So don't move at the first few minutes of, oh, I'm uncomfortable. And there's a whole investigation of pain that can be done, which is quite fascinating. I hope that many people are not wondering on day 2 why they had the thought that they were interested in undertaking koan training. Now that you've gotten your first taste. Wondering is fine. Wondering is a step into a koan. And the next step is looking deeply, experiencing deeply. Koans aren't something to play with and pass with a feeling of accomplishment or superiority about passing. Oh, the teacher gave me another koan. I must be making progress on the Buddha way. In this practice, progress means letting go, not gaining. Starting fresh, starting fresh, starting fresh. It's important to know that there's a difference between studying koans and koan training. That's a distinction that I draw. A distinction between studying koans and koan training. I use the term studying koans to refer to a practice of the discursive mind, the intellectual mind, and discussion of koans in books, classes, or now some people hold koan salons, where everybody gets together and discusses their interpretation of a koan. That's fine, but that is not koan training. Koan training refers to a 10 to 20-year process of one-on-one, face-to-face work with koans in what we call the poison cave of a qualified and experienced teacher who has been sanctioned by a previous koan master. So Fuho has finished koan training after a number of years. I did koan training with Chozen Roshi and finished it, and then when I began practicing with Shodo Harada Roshi, I picked it back up again. He gave me different koans in the Rinzai tradition. So study of koans is to koan training, like reading a cookbook is to cooking yourself on a skewer. Maybe you experienced a little of that skewer yesterday. Koans are a mysterious and diabolical device for drilling down through layers and layers of delusion and confusion and personal strategies and karmic tangles to arrive at an experience, not an idea, but an experience of a stunningly simple and fundamental truth. The experience is for transforming, not for collecting. Chan Master Zhong Fen Min Pen in the late 1200s or early 1300s wrote about koan practice, training. It cannot be understood by logic. It cannot be transmitted in words. It cannot be explained in writing. It cannot be measured by reason. Koans are certainly not intended to be used merely to increase one's lore and provide topics for idle conversation. Koans are an entryway into our new experience of who we truly are, and a test of the clarity and depth of that experience. Koans demand that we let go of our limited idea of a self-centered identity and plunge into the myriad aspects of who we really are. such as our pillarness. When we're able to step out of critical mind, out of fear, out of self-consciousness, and truly plunge into the pillar, truly experience the pillarness of our own being, then something changes. It's interesting because many koans are about things we've had experience with or feel kinship with, like a tree or a cloud or a person working with a hoe. But pillarness is different. So when you truly experience your pillarness, when you step aside from being this limited human being, smart and also terribly ignorant, skilled and also clumsy, and so on. And you summon the qualities of a pillar and truly experience them over and over and over again. Then you will be able to summon those qualities of the pillar: support, steadfastness, and imperturbability that will serve you the rest of your life. And when you work earnestly on a koan, or when you let the koan work on you, you make friends everywhere. There are pillars all over this building. Notice them. Ask about their reality. They're kind of unusual pillars, too. They have two parts. I don't know if you've noticed that. So there are two categories, at least, of koans. There are breakthrough koans. Breakthrough koans and the other side of reality. Koan training usually begins by taking up an initial koan, which is called a breakthrough koan. A breakthrough koan works as a catalyst for a realization, often sudden, that in addition to conventional reality, there's another aspect of existence that permeates everything but is ordinarily undetected or only glimpsed. This other half of reality, if we want to divide it in halves, has been called by many names over many centuries in many different traditions. Names such as true nature, original nature, natural mind, essential nature, Buddha nature, big mind, the great mystery, and the absolute, in contrast to the relative world. There are different names in other religious traditions, all mystical traditions in all religions speak of this, even though it's always considered beyond description. So it's been called awakening, realization, all with capital letters, transcendence, revelation, illumination, in Japan, Kensho, and in China, Jiangxing. So as Fu-Ho mentioned, and as all of us have experienced, we may have had a glimpse of this other aspect of reality. We call them peak moments, when everything seems to slow down or stop. Our mind switches from constant thinking to pure awareness. Colors and sounds become more vivid. And all is right with the world. It could occur when you're running and you break through the discomfort of harsh breathing and feet pounding on the pavement to an experience of pure flow. It could occur when you open to the infinite expanse of the sky and the universe beyond it at night. Or when you're present for a birth or a death or a sudden accident. Peak experiences are usually brief. We marvel and then we move on, as Fu-Ho demonstrated. Kensho experiences are more substantial openings into that transcendent realm. But they can be transient too if you don't continue meditation practice and you don't continue working with a teacher. Just as peak experiences are not created by the rational mind, so koans cannot be solved by the rational mind. We have to learn to concentrate and clear the mind of thoughts, and then drop the koan into that space, holding it with no attempt to figure it out. You have to meet face to face with a teacher who demands an answer, but rejects all answers that smack of the rational mind. A breakthrough koan must become a burning question that is irreversibly lodged in the body-mind. One author compared it to a time bomb, ticking away underneath the everyday activity of our individual life and work. It becomes what we call a doubt mass. It has almost a physical presence and demands to be resolved. It bides its time, waiting for the mind to be at complete rest. Not a single human thought. So the traditional breakthrough koans are mu, the sound of one hand, your face before your grandparents were born, or what is this? What is this? Not who is this, because that gets back into the personal, but what is this? Or just this. So in working with koans, you can reduce it down to one or two essential words. Every koan pretty much has some trick words to trip the mind back into rational thought, back into division. So those traditional breakthrough koans can be reduced to mu, or sound, or original faith, or what. So in Chan practice, that's called the huato, distilling the koan down into one or two words. So it can be carried with you as that ticking time bomb. And it comes up, and then it goes back down again. And you move on with life, and then it comes back up again. Often it's after months or years of concentrated, single-minded meditation that a breakthrough occurs. And often it seems triggered by a trivial occurrence. In the koan literature, examples are the sound of a pebble hitting bamboo, the subtle click of a key laid on a table in a dark room, the sight of plum blossoms, a shout, a blow with a stick, the snuffing out of a candle that triggers the profound turning that throws us into the absolute. The experience always originates in the body, arises through the body, and it may take the mind a while to realize what has occurred. And then the mind typically takes it up and talks about it. But if it's a true breakthrough, it's almost inexpressible in words. So the person is really flummoxed in trying to bring it to the teacher. Case 28 of The Gateless Gate describes how a monk named Deshan experienced Kensho when the flame in the paper lantern was suddenly blown out. So Deshan was a scholar of the Diamond Sutra and preached on the Diamond Sutra and carried it around with him, written Diamond Sutra. So once when Deshan was getting instructions from Longtan, his teacher, he stayed on into the night. This is way before electricity. Deshan said goodbye because Longshan said, "It's late, why don't you leave?" So Deshan lifted the curtain up, the curtain on the door, to go, and he saw that it was completely dark outside. So he turned back to his teacher and said, "It's dark outside." So Longtan, the teacher, lit a paper lantern and handed it to Deshan. And as Deshan was about to take it, standing in the darkness, Longtan blew the candle out. At that moment, Deshan suddenly had an insight. He then bowed to Longtan, who said, "What have you seen?" Deshan said, "From this day forward, I will no longer doubt your words." The next day, Longtan went up to the teaching hall and said to the assembly, "Among you there's a fellow with teeth like swords and a mouth like a bowl full of blood. Strike him a blow and he shall never turn back. In the future he will go to the summit of a solitary peak and establish our path there." Deshan then went in front of the teaching hall with all of his commentaries and annotations on the Diamond Sutra. Holding up a torch, he exclaimed, "Exhausting all sublime theories is nothing more than placing a single hair in the vastness of space. Investigating the workings of the world is like throwing a single drop of water into a great abyss." He then burned his commentaries and annotations, paid homage to Longtan, and bid farewell. Everything that I have studied, everything that I thought I had mastered, understood, is nothing but a single hair in the vastness of space. In the Zen literature, the Chan literature, this opening has been described as "when the mysterious pivot turns," which is in our chant. This means that we pivot 180 degrees away from our customary, limited, and one-sided view of who we are. Lonely and defective individuals who are basically unsafe in a world of suffering. When the mysterious pivot turns, our mind opens wide to an entirely different understanding and experience of who we are. That we are simultaneously one tiny part and the whole of all existence. An existence that has no beginning, no end, no where, no when, and from which all individual existences continually emerge, exist briefly, and then disappear back into. Then the mind becomes a precious mirror, where each thing is reflected without distortion. No distortion of prejudice, of fear, of reactivity, of judgment. Each thing, each thought, each emotion appears and is gone. In the words of the Faith Mind chant that we do, when this one mind rests undisturbed, then nothing in the world offends. Doubts and confusion disappear and all obstructions cease to be. You can rest at the mysterious source, free from all entanglements. This pivotal event is like suddenly being turned inside out from an in where you are a small, painfully finite and separate being, a tiny spark in the vast scheme of time, into an out that is beyond life and death, is infinite and eternal. For some time, this experience can be completely disorienting, and people may require grounding through physical activity like washing dishes, cleaning toilets, or digging in the garden. For other people, it's like returning home, a home that they once knew and somehow forgot, and they exclaim, "How could I have forgotten this?" You will never know what will trigger this explosion. You will never know what piece of the delusion of I, me, and mind it will take out. I've always thought that koan work is like psychic surgery. After it's over, the surface is intact, but something deep and diseased inside has been removed. Koans are not a problem that you can solve with the intellectual mind. Koans bypass the mind to solve the problem of you. Koan work is a lifetime process. To say that you have finished koans, as I said about Fuho, is not accurate. You never finish koan work. So after the initial koan, the breakthrough koan, then in some traditions, including in our White Plum tradition, there's a series of checking koans. So in some tradition, there's a set of 100 to 200 checking koans, which are designed to keep the doors open to the initial experience of the transcendent and to clean out the murky corners where the light of that realization did not quite reach. Breakthrough koans are a test of clarity and the depth of our new experience of who we truly are. Can we let go of our limited idea of a self-centered identity and open again to the myriad aspects of true existence, our true existence? So the koan, hide yourself in a pillar, that we gave you all, is one of the classic checking questions. As you plunge into this koan, you must let go of the fallacy that you are a separate, isolated, lonely person. who is skilled and defective, lovely and ugly, smart and ignorant, misunderstood and loved, and enter a realm of connection, of complete connection, connection to the bug you pick up and take outside, connection to the little spears of broccoli rabe that you're chopping, connection to the farmer who grew the brown rice in your bowl, connection to the chipmunks who scurry out from under the planter boxes. And that connection is the best food there is, the greatest love there is. To see into these checking koans, the student has to keep diving back into the realm of original mind. It's as if the student has traveled to a foreign country and the teacher calls them up and says, what do you see when you look around? What are the inhabitants like? Is time different there? What about suffering there? So what is it like hiding the self completely inside a pillar? Becoming a pillar. And in koan training, you might be stuck on that koan for weeks until the teacher really feels that you have let go of the self. So you can judge for yourself when you come in and present, hide yourself in a pillar. Is it 10% pillar, 90% person, 50-50? Fear and pitfalls in koan training. This koan speaks to the fear which many students encounter as their practice continues, and intimations of an impending breakthrough occur. So many people feel fear arise as they approach a breakthrough. The rational mind keeps clinging like a frightened little person, hanging on to the thin top of a 100-foot swaying bamboo pole, refusing to let go of reality as I know it, and plunging into a dark abyss, into unknown territory where the discriminating mind and the constructed self is not in charge. So this is case 46, a step beyond the 100-foot pole. Venerable Shi Shuang said, how to take a step beyond the 100-foot pole. Another ancient worthy said, although the person sitting on top of the 100-foot pole has found an entry, it is still not real. At the top of the 100-foot pole, you must step forward and expose the full body of reality throughout the worlds in the 10 directions. Uman's comment, if you are able to take a step forward, then you will be able to flip your body around and see that there is no place that is unholy. Even though it is like this, still, how to take a step beyond the 100-foot pole? Huh? Koans do not have one correct answer. One correct answer. If taken in earnest, they continue to open up new insights throughout your life. For example, this koan, the 100-foot pole koan, can point to the common observation that a student who's had a first opening will cling to that experience and try to replicate it. This is actually impossible, as the swiftly flowing waters of impermanence are always in charge. we must continually let go. Other koans speak of sitting on top of an icy peak when a student clings to the cold, impartial aspect of the experience of infinity, the experience of timelessness. The real world is seen as an annoyance, an impediment to one's holy state and purity of mind. This can happen even after a week of silent retreat, where students are reluctant to go home and face the demands of their family or their work. So we always tell people at the end of Sesshin, don't go home and put yourself in a dark closet. Trying to reclaim perfect equanimity and detachment that you experienced during the retreat. Muman commented on this koan, and he speaks to the sacred aspect of every single bit of our life when he says, there is no place that is unholy. There is no place that is unholy. That's a beautiful koan by itself. So I'll finish by saying that koan training has to be based on 3 foundations. The first is living an ethical life in accord with the Buddhist precepts. If we do not, our heart and mind remain clouded. For example, if you've told one lie, then you have to remember who you told that lie to and who you didn't tell that lie to. And if the lie is discovered, then you may need to cover it up with a second lie and so on. And even if no one discovers the lie, your own heart-mind is aware of it and unsettled by it. So the first foundation is precepts. The second foundation is samadhi, which all of you experience in Sesshin. The serenity of a profoundly concentrated and settled heart-mind. And deep samadhi helps open access to the third foundation, prajna or wisdom. When the mind is at peace, illuminating insights can arise from the ever-flowing river of truth that we call prajna paramita, wisdom beyond wisdom. Chan Master Heng Sure, some of whose chants we chant, who lived in the late 1000s and early 1100s, he wrote, "It is important that these 3 aspects are balanced, but if illumination neglects serenity, then aggressiveness appears." It's in our chant. Certifying in dialogue, they respond to each other appropriately. But if serenity neglects illumination, murkiness leads to wasted dharma. Please continue to cultivate Sokan breathing, concentration, and moments or minutes or longer periods of silent and serene mind. Carry the koan earnestly and let it do its work. When your mind ground is not obscured by thoughts, your innate wisdom is revealed. When the heart is not obscured by fear, your innate kindness and compassion emerge. Let go of all that is extra and rest in the ground of being.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast, and thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation at zendust.org. Your support supports us.